Hey guys, it's Alexander Dahl with Manifest Brutality once again. So I have another interview, and we're kind of just going to go ahead and get straight into that, since I don't really have any other updates. And without further ado, here we go. All right, I'm currently on the phone with Tank of Outlast Saint. He's one of the people that reached out to me about my interview project, and I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hey, this is Tank from Outlast Saint. Basically, I'm a what I call an old man rocker. One of those guys that is basically going to be performing until the day he dies.
So tell me a little bit about, when you were growing up, what was kind of one of like the linchpin moments that made you realize that music was something that you wanted to have in your life for the rest of your life?
Well, basically, it actually happened back in 1986 when I was in sixth grade. Up
Okay.
until then, I've been listening to basically everything that my parents listened to. Which was pre-Beatles rock and roll and old country. So basically,
Hmm.
once the Beatles hit the scene, they switched from rock and roll to country.
Sure.
And then 86, friend of mine in high school felt kind of bad, with the music that I was listening to, and hands me a mixtape, one of those original mixtapes, with different songs being recorded on the same tape.
Sure.
Hands me the tape, says, "Here, take it home. Tell me what you think." So I go home, four songs on this tape. Never heard this style of music before. Loud guitars. It sounded pretty cool. There was one song on there I thought was Rolling Stone Satisfaction, meaning I'd heard of the song, but I never actually heard the song.
Sure.
And then the next day, I went back to my friend. I'm going like, dude, this is cool. And I'm going like, this one is this Rolling Stone Satisfaction? He looks at me really weird and says, "No, it's Poison's I Want Action."
Ah, ah.
Turns out four songs off of "Look What the Cat Dragged In," and I was instantly memorized with that type of style.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, a year later, he introduces me to Appetite for Destruction, and the rest they
Sure.
say is history.
Awesome. So once kind of that like bone was set, did you like pick up an instrument after that? Did you do like concert band in school or anything?
Well, actually, I did choir. I don't look at myself as a musician per se.
Okay.
I'm definitely not an instrumentalist. I tried picking up guitar, but uh, basically what had happened was is that I wanted to play guitar a year earlier than what the guitar instructors in my area. They're going like, "Oh, you're too young. Wait one more year."
Weird.
So I when I finally were willing to teach me, it was like I'm feeling like I should already be a year ahead here.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, it was just like, yeah, it's just I put it down. I'm one of those people where I call myself groove oriented.
Sure.
Whereas I can't tell you which key I'm singing in, but you play something and I can match it.
Sure.
When you're writing a song, I know where the solo begins and I know where it ends. I just listen to certain parts of the song, even though I can't tell you what notes or chords they are.
Sure. So you have more like a educated ear than a technical ear.
Exactly.
That's cool. So were you in high school or junior high before, when you started looking for band members, or?
No, I remember for the briefest moment, I remember trying to get into a three piece with my brother and one of our classmates, but that was more of a dream than anything.
Okay.
But I was in theater at the time,
Okay.
and see, I've been performing, in front of people, in front of strangers since the age of 9.
Okay.
And
Sure.
it wasn't until I graduated and I moved to the cities that the theater suddenly there was just something about it that was missing, and that was when I started wanting to get a band together.
Okay. So did you move to the cities specifically looking for like other musicians, or was there like another external life component that led you into the cities?
Well, actually, what had happened was is that back when I was in high school, I didn't know what a social life was. Uh, you know,
Agreed.
Yeah, it was just like I didn't start, socializing with people until 12th grade, and that was just because, back in the day, 12th graders had to be respected. It didn't matter who you were before you became a senior. Once you became a senior, everyone had to show you respect.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, it got to the point where anyone that made fun of you as a senior got hazed.
Hmm.
It was an unwritten rule. Um, so when I graduated, I thought I was going right. I thought I was going right into a career.
Okay.
I didn't. I thought that was my next step in life. And so, literally, 2 weeks after I graduated, I went into college.
Okay.
And I guess I was interested in music a little bit at that point, and so I wanted to be a DJ.
Okay.
So I actually went to Brown College. At the time was down in South Minneapolis, and
Sure.
did a 2 year. It was actually a year and a half program, but I took a semester off, so it ended up being, a 2 year. And by the time that I graduated, I was no longer interested in being a DJ. I was more interested in making music than I was broadcasting it.
Okay. Okay. Sure. See, when you said DJ, my like immediate brain went to like spinning discs and whatnot. I didn't. I
Yep.
didn't even think of the radio. But now that you mention it, I probably should have gone there first.
Yep. Well, that's a common misconception. Nowadays it's, it. I mean, when I was, training to be a DJ,
Mm-hmm.
they were just switching over from I mean, I was the last class to do a reel to reel for my audition tape.
Okay.
It became digital right after, right around the time that I graduated. Everything turned to digital, which,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
ch- changed everything. So,
So once you decided that the DJ path wasn't what you wanted to take, how did you go about the process of kind of formulating what kind of band you wanted to be in, and then looking for people that would fit into that niche?
well, basically what had happened is that I was in a very interesting predicament where I was right on the borderline between, half of my class still loved the 80s, the other half started getting into grunge.
Okay.
I was literally on the borderline.
Sure.
And to me, it's just like all my friends, they started saying, oh, Kurt Cobain is the next best thing, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And to me, it was just like, dude, I just got introduced to 80s like, like 4 years ago.
Sure.
So it's just like, I'm going like, that's the direction I want to go.
Sure.
And in the back of my mind, Appetite was always the catalyst for that. To me, Appetite for Destruction was the most uncommercial. They were brutally honest about what they sang about. Back in
Sure.
those days, it was like they had to write a rocker. It was all formulaic. They had to
Hmm.
write a rocker for the men. They had to write a ballad for the women.
Yep. Sure.
But it's just like Guns N' Roses came around and go like, they started singing about drug abuse. They started singing about, you know, uh, the stuff they went through on the streets.
Sure. Well, even to this day, Appetite for Destruction is one of the all-time top like referenced albums when you're talking about the music industry in general.
Yep, exactly. And so for the longest time, for the last 20 years, I never strayed from the direction that I've always wanted. I always wanted the Aerosmith, the Guns N' Roses, the AC/DC. It was just
Hmm.
like to me, bands were they were following the time. They just wanted to, for better lack of words, a lot of them became sellouts. They
Sure.
wanted to become they went with what was popular.
Fit the current landscape of the music industry so they could actually push a career kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And for me, for 20 years, I never wavered from that bluesy hard rock feel.
Very cool.
So I'll be the first to admit it's been kind of hard trying to find the right people that still wanted to, that
Hmm.
had the same belief as me,
Sure.
And then when you did find the right people, you had to be careful because I ran into a lot of flakes back in the day.
Well, I commonly refer to myself as a flake because I feel like I flake out on things. How would that description fit what you're intending to say? Like, what do you mean when you're calling somebody a flake?
Well, okay, I don't mean. I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing when you have a person that goes like, "Hey, I'll try it. Hey, that sounds like a cool idea," and then they come to realize, well, maybe this is not for me. That's not a flake.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay. Sure.
you know, there are certain people that, hey, it sounds like a good idea. I'll give it a shot. But you know, I don't expect a lot of people to be as obsessed with, you know, this style as I am, and I am obsessed. You know,
Sure.
I'll be the first one to admit that. The type of flake are the ones that don't want to practice. They make excuses why. You know, they're going like, oh well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and then oh, I didn't have time to do this. You know, I've
Sure.
even had people that come in saying, "Oh, I love your style of music," you know, blah blah blah, and then once they're in the band, they tried hijacking it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so it's just like, you know, I'm talking about the people that, you know, they they go at it the wrong way. It's kind of hard to, you know, there's just some people that want to take it seriously. There's other people that, for example, they prefer to get high or they prefer to get drunk over actually trying to bring the band to the next level.
Sure. That's actually one of the kind of discussion posts that I have on my channel is about how it's really difficult for bands to identify with the people that they're auditioning right off the bat because you can never really upfront tell what somebody's ambition is for getting into a band. Like, what do they want
Mm,
out of it, and what like is their trajectory that they foresee out of it? You know. And
right.
like you said, some people will get in there and just try to hijack the thing.
Yeah, I've had that a couple of times. So
So while you were forming, have you kind of always spearheaded the Outlast Saint band, and you haven't really ventured too far out of that to play with other bands or anything, or is this kind of the sole project that you want to be your legacy?
well, for the last 10 years, this has been the spearheading. This is, you know, this is what I might want the legacy to be.
Okay,
You
sure.
know, to me, I have tried for other bands. I was even in one of those unique positions where, you know, you got to decide, you know, if you want to be in a cover band or if you want to be in an original
Right.
band. And, you know, there's even been people that were going like, yeah, I want to try the original thing. But when they find out, oh, well, I'm not making as much money as I used to, oh, I'm
Hmm.
no longer interested.
Or that
You
it's
know,
actually really hard work.
exactly. Exactly. So,
So as you've been spearheading the Outlast Saint band project, one of the probably many words I'll refer to it as. Um, how did you kind of pinpoint who were going to be your core members versus the flakes that would come in and out of like the audition process and then actually finally stick with you?
well, basically, what I started doing is I started having interviews, and in my interviews, I would tell them exactly, hey, this is what to expect.
Okay.
You know, for example, it's just like, you know, the first thing that I told a lot of people when auditioning, you know, when they were interested in auditioning, you're not going to make a whole lot of money doing this.
Sure.
You know, it's just like we have to work hard in order to, you know, get to half the places that a lot of cover bands would get. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that fishing out was I usually one of my on phone interviews, for example, would usually take about an hour.
Okay. Like every time you audition somebody, it would be like an hour interview being like, you're going to do this. It's going to be like this sort of
Well,
thing.
sort of. I do leave. I'm not a total. I don't feel I'm a total dictator.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to the band, I am open to other people's ideas as long as it follows a certain path. For example, you know, the one path is, you know, I want the music to be, you know, bluesy hard rock. I don't want to go
Mm-hmm.
from Guns N' Roses uh, to like Testament or Slayer. You know,
Sure. Sure.
you know, as long as, hey, as long as we're on a certain path, you know, if you have any ideas, bring them to me. I'm all up for ideas.
Right. As long as it kind of fits into the vein that you're looking for.
Exactly, exactly. So it's just, for example, with Outlaw Saint right now, we have a guy named we call him, well, he calls himself Voodoo Billy,
Okay. Cool.
and And what's really cool is that when he first came in, we had this one sound, and he goes like, okay. So he sets up his pedal board,
Mm-hmm.
and he walks in. He's going like, okay, you guys say you want to sound like AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and
Mm-hmm.
says, well, he said, this is what you guys sound like right now. So he starts, playing a few things,
Okay.
and he says, well, see, he says, now this is a little bit heavier than what you say you're looking for. And he says, to be honest, if you're going to go that heavy, I might not be interested. But if this is what you're looking for, and he turns like several knobs on his board, and the next thing you know, uh, he sounded like Bon Era Scott Angus Young.
Oh, nice.
And it's just like you could literally tell the difference between what he was playing and what we were playing.
Wow.
And then, so it's just like at that point, he's going like, so is this what you guys want? And we're going like, and I'm thinking to myself, in the back of my mind, I'm going like, yes, this is what we want, and yes, you're hired.
That's almost a no-brainer, because musicians like that can dial in like a style like that, just like recalling it from memory. Those
Mhm.
musicians are very valuable.
Yes, and he has some ideas that, well, okay, so say for example, for over the last few years, I've always marketed the band as heavily influenced by Guns N' Roses and AC/DC.
Okay.
And I understand that, I was trying to get a certain niche, because it's one of those. Hey, if you just say that you're a hard rock band, okay, that hard rock could be anywhere from Guns N' Roses to Alter Bridge,
Sure.
two different styles or whatnot. But it's
Mm-hmm.
just like he made the suggestion. So basically, right now, instead of saying we're heavily influenced by Guns N' Roses and AC/DC, we're basically saying we've got basically bluesy hard rock anthems mixed with a gung ho rock show.
Sure, sure. Right before we got on the phone, we were talking about canceled shows and everything, since it's
Yes.
2020 and all hell is breaking loose. What have been some of like the interactions that you've had with like other bands that you've been on the bill with? Do they try to put you with other similar sounding things, or I imagine in some cases they'll try to like fill out a lineup with like different styles? Like how has that balance worked out?
Well, as a rule, I'm the one that's usually setting up the shows in certain areas,
Okay.
or a majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would there'll be one night that I'll do a metal and rock show. There'll be another night it's just all bluesy rock. It just all depends. And so let's just say that we have a 4-band night. 2 bands are bluesy rock. 2 are metal. I would do a gradual. I'd start off with the 2 the bluesy rock bands, and then go into the metal instead of going from rock to metal, back to rock to metal.
Sure, sure. That makes sense. And like, what have been some of like the more tense moments, like when you've been dealing with setting up a bill like that, where one band feels like they should be at a different spot than a different band, and
Well, actually, I don't really come across that problem all too much, just for the main fact that, we do have. Uh, I try to work with everyone as far as, hey, what spot do you want? What spot do you want? We would prefer to have this spot, but we wouldn't mind having this spot if you want our spot.
sure, sure. So tell me a little bit about the way that you've kind of worked with your musicians to kind of get to the point where they'll develop a song, and then you'll come in there and use like your ear to kind of put in like your part to it, like your singing, your vocals.
Well, things have been a little bit different with this current lineup that we have
Mm-hmm.
compared to other times. Other times it's just like, someone would have an idea for a riff, one riff, and then we would build on it. Hey, do we want to do a pre-chorus here, or whatnot? With Voodoo Billy, he has a whole bunch of riffs that just he's been working on for years. It's just, and what's really cool is that he's also he's multi-genre.
Mm-hmm.
He likes country. He'll do stuff that's country. He'll do stuff that's rock. He some metal, and it's just it started off. He came up with an idea. Hey, how about this? He what he did is that the first few songs he not accidentally, I mean, that's probably not the right term, but he just put some ideas out, and
Hmm.
it just turns out he was just jamming. And I was listening to it, and I'm going, well, if we switch this here with this here, that's an actual song.
It's always really nice when it comes out really fluent like that.
Yep. And then as far as lyrics are concerned, I'll have something that happens to me, and it's just like it just happens to fit the song. The first song we wrote called Backseat Treaty is just like he had something that's very ACDC ish, blah blah blah. And it just so happens that I had an interesting encounter with what became at the time a Friends with Benefits,
Okay.
and and it's just like the words just came to me, as we were writing the song, and yeah, it was just one of those where it happened, just recently,
Sure.
and I was able to put the lyrics down on it. So
Awesome. So, with through the decade that you've been doing Outlast Saint, and then your previous time in like getting into music, tell me one or two of like one of the most memorable things that has happened throughout that time.
well, I used to be a lot of my practice started with something called amateur band jam night during the what was it? It was the late '90s. And basically, think about it this way: all these open jams that you see nowadays
Mm-hmm.
was started back in '98 with a band called UKI, featuring members of Slave Raider.
Okay.
They started the whole thing, and that's where I got a lot of my experience with my performing and such.
Sure.
And at the time, I come to realize, I'm not the best singer in the world, blah blah blah. And then I went to see Poison in 1999.
Okay.
The first what was it? It was the first reunion tour with CC DeVille,
Oh, cool.
and I'm there and I see the way that they're moving on stage, and it's just like that was my epitome. I'm going like epiphany. I'm going like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not the best singer in the world, but I'm gonna put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be the one that's gonna be moving all over the place. And when I came back, I started studying a guy named Mike Schneider, who is actually, we call him Happy. He was actually a guitar player for a Hairball.
Oh, cool.
And if you've ever seen Hairball, you've seen this guy. I mean, this guy is all over the place. So it's just like I started studying him, and it's just this guy. We had some wild times. I mean, there's so many stories of things that happened during this band jam. It was just, it's just amazing. Okay, to give you an example, we had a guy named Otis who was multi instrumental. So it's just like if someone needed a bass player or a singer for a certain song, he would be there. Well, for whatever reason, don't know how it started, but there became a tradition where every time he would play drums, me, Happy, and a guy named Russ Lund, who went by the name Sleazy,
Mm-hmm.
everyone knew that as soon as he played drums, the three of us would get up there and moon him.
Nice.
And there's just so many other things going on. So, but that's just an example.
So before I let you go, I want you to give me all of like your social media plugs, your website, anything else that you want anybody that might listen to this to know, and where to go to find more information about you. And then after that, I always like to give the person that I interview the last word, like a message that you kind of want to be remembered by. So why don't you give me your plugs and then also your last word?
Okay. Outlawsaint.net, all one word, and there's no the at the beginning, no S at the end, singular. Outlawsaint.net. Facebook or Reverb Nation / Saint. YouTube.com, Outlaw Saint TV, as in television. And, those are the ones that we usually go by. As far as last word, hey, if anyone out there is looking for, energetic, bluesy hard rock anthems, gung ho live show, come check out Outlaw Saint.